It starts with a simple knock at the door. Quiet December night in Northern Ireland. The TV is on. Cups of tea are still warm on the table. And on the other side of that door, someone is about to pull two ordinary bank workers into one of the most genius robberies in modern history. By the time this story ends, £26.5 million will vanish from a major bank. No alarm will ring, no masked men will storm the lobby, and almost 20 years later, the robbers and the money will both still be missing. This is not fiction, this is the real Northern bank robbery, the biggest bank heist in the history of the United Kingdom, and one of the most carefully planned crimes the world has ever seen. Now, story begins in West Belfast. A young bank employee named Chris Ward is at home. He is not in a meeting or behind a vault door. He is on the sofa watching football with his parents, his brother, and his girlfriend. For him, it is just another night. Then the knock. Chris goes to open the door and finds a man standing there. The man smiles and casually says he is there to talk about Celtic Football Club, the same club Chris supports. As an active fan for Chris, this feels normal. He is used to people asking about tickets and club events, so he lets the man inside. But as the door opens wider, Chris sees two more men standing just out of sight in the shadows. The moment they step in, everything changes. Guns come out, voices harden. The friendly football talk is over. The men point their weapons at Chris's family and calmly tell him the truth. They are not here for Celtic, they are here for his job. Chris works in the cash center in the basement of Northern Bank, one of the four main banks in Northern Ireland, and these men know it. They tell him they know who he is, where he works, and exactly how valuable he is to them. They give him a very clear choice. Follow their orders or watch his family die. He is told to get his work uniform, walk out the door, and get into the car waiting outside. No looking around, no questions, no hesitation. Meanwhile, around 20 miles away, another door is about to open at a home in County Down. Northern Bank manager Kevin McMullen and his wife Karen are spending a quiet evening together. They are watching TV, enjoying a normal night, when they hear a knock. Kevin opens the door and sees two men in the uniform of the police service of Northern Ireland. They are carrying a clipboard with his and Karen's names written on it. They tell him there has been a serious family accident. They need him to come right away to identify a butt in. That moment he does what almost anyone would do. He steps outside. As soon as he does, a gun is pressed into the back of his head inside his wife. Karen is grabbed by the throat, forced to the ground, and pinned. She barely has time to understand what is happening within minutes. Both homes have been taken over to different families, to different towns, but one single plant. The men holding them are calm and methodical. In Kevin's house, they move around, cleaning surfaces, wiping anything they might have touched. They do not shout, they do not panic, they talk in low voices and give short instructions. It becomes clear that this is not a random robbery. This is a controlled operation. At Kevin's house, they tell him to forget his role at Northern Bank, forget the vault, forget the responsibility. The only thing he has to think about now, they say, is his wife. Then they blindfold Karen. They tape her eyes, tell her she is being moved to another safe house where another woman will look after her, and take her away. Kevin can only listen as his wife is led out of the room and pushed into a waiting car. What he does not know is that in another part of the same house, Chris Ward is already there. He too has been brought to this location. His hands are tied behind his back with cable ties. He is left sitting alone in a cold kitchen lit only by the open fridge. Eventually the kidnappers bring both men together in the living room. There, the rules are laid out. They are told that their families will be held hostage, that they will both go to work the next day, act as if everything is normal, and help carry out a carefully planned robbery inside Northern Bank. If they cooperate, their families live. If they slip up even once, their families die. This kind of crime has a name in the history of Northern Ireland. It is called a tiger kidnapping. A tiger kidnapping is a two-part crime. First, someone important is targeted not for ransom but as a tool. Then, instead of demanding money directly, the kidnappers force that person to commit another crime, often a robbery on their behalf. During the period of conflict in Northern Ireland, known as the Troubles, this method was used by both organized criminals and paramilitary groups. Even after peace agreements, the method did not completely disappear. Northern Bank was a perfect target for such a plan. It held huge amounts of cash, especially in the days leading up to Christmas. It had a high-security underground cash center, but even that had weak points. The main vault needed 2 keys to open, and the key holders changed every week. By pure coincidence, the key holders for the next morning were exactly the 2 men now being held hostage, Chris Ward and Kevin McMullen. The kidnappers knew this. They knew the staff rotations, the timing of security shifts, the design of the building, the blind spots in the camera system, and even what the color of certain seals on cash boxes meant inside the bank's system. This was not luck, this was resources. The night goes on. The men in the house start giving detailed instructions. They hand Chris and Kevin to mobile phones, one marked with a C, the other with a K. Each phone has only 1 number saved, and they are told to keep them switched on at all times the next day. One of the kidnappers does most of the talking. He holds a large knife. The others communicate with low whistles, tongue clicks, and the sound of coins in their pockets. At one point, Chris asks for a can of beer. Surprisingly, they give him one. Maybe he is trying to show he is calm, maybe he is terrified, and just wants something normal to cling to. Either way, it shows how complete the control is. He knows he cannot fight back. The plan they are given has several stages. First, they will go to work and act completely normal. Then at a set time they will go down to the vault, take a smaller amount of money, and hand it over at a bus stop outside. This is a test run. Later, they will use green cash boxes and special seals to move far larger amounts without raising suspicion. Finally, they will clear out even more money in large black bags. At every stage, the phones will ring with new instructions, and hanging over all of this, the same threat remains. Their families are being held somewhere in the dark, and any mistake could mean death. Around 2 in the morning, after hours of threats and planning, the kidnappers tell them to try to sleep the next day. They say will be a big day. Morning comes. It is December. 4 days before Christmas. People in Belfast are shopping, rushing, getting ready for the holidays. Kevin drives his car toward the bank. Chris sits beside him. On the outside, they look like 2 colleagues on their way to work. On the inside, they know their loved ones are still at gunpoint. Chris's shift starts at 11:30. Kevin's half an hour later. The bank is busier than usual. Cash is flowing in and out. Millions pass through the cash center every day, but today it will be tens of millions. Throughout the day, Chris and Kevin make calls from their special phones at set times. Each call is both a progress report and a warning. The men on the other end remind them what is at stake. Around 4:30 in the afternoon, Kevin tells the staff that there is a problem with the balance, and that he and Chris will need to stay late to sort it out. He sends the other workers home. Now in the lower levels of the bank, only 2 security officers, Kevin and Chris, remain. Exactly 5. They take their keys and go to the underground cash center. They insert the keys, turn them together, and open the vault. Inside, there are stacks of bank notes, freshly printed notes, older used notes, sterling, euros, and dollars, all organized in green boxes and bundles. Kevin knows there is a blind spot in the camera coverage, a corner of the vault that is not recorded. They move to that area and quietly begin the first part of the plan. Chris fills a bag with £1 million in 50 and £100 notes. He then walks up from the vault, out of the bank, and over to a nearby bus stop. He sets the bag down, waits a few moments, and a man appears, picks up the bag, and walks away. Without a word for a moment, it feels like this might be the end. Maybe this is all the kidnappers wanted. Then Chris's phone rings. The voice congratulates him, then tells him to go back inside and take more. The test run is over. Now the real theft begins. To understand the next stage, we need to look at how cash moves inside the bank. Money is often transported in green boxes. Each box can hold up to around £1 million. The important detail is the seal on the box. If it has a metal security seal, it signals that it contains cash. If it has a white seal, Inside the system that usually means waste paper, the kidnappers told Chris and Kevin to switch the seals on the boxes by putting white seals on green boxes full of money. They make them look like containers of worthless scrap inside the bank's records in the vault. They begin loading these boxes onto trolleys. There are 24 boxes in total, each with the new white seals. They group them 6 to a trolley, making for heavy loads. Now, they need to get them outside. To do that, they have to go past the security room, then through a back area called Bullion Bay, which connects to a side alley only. Certain security vans are usually allowed into that space, but the kidnappers are counting on something simpler than forged IDs. They are counting on trust. Kevin goes to the security guard on duty, a man named Billy, and tells him that a van is coming to collect waste. Billy is used to these kinds of routine movements, so he opens the gate. A few minutes later, a white van reverses into position, lining up its rear door with the bank's back entrance. 2 men step out together with Kevin, Chris, and Billy. They begin loading the boxes into the van. In 7 minutes, 24 boxes, carrying around 18.5 million pounds, are inside the vehicle. The van leaves, and nobody sounds an alarm. But still, it is not over. The kidnappers want more. One of the men hands Chris a roll of large black polythene bags. He tells him they will be back against Kevin, and Chris rush back to the vault. This time they load loose banknotes, mixed sterling, euros, and dollars, stuffing them into the bags as fast as they can. In total, they pack around 5.1 million pounds worth of notes when the van returns. Billy again opens the gate. He has no reason to suspect anything. After all, he is standing with his manager, and everything looks like normal work. Kevin and Chris push a rolling cage stacked with the black bags out to the van. The men load the bags inside one after another. When they finish, one of the robbers turns to them and says a simple line that is, "It lads, you can go." And just like that, the biggest bank robbery in UK history is complete. Kevin and Chris are told to raise the alarm and then go home. They get into Kevin's car and drive away, not knowing 100% if their families are even still alive. At around 8:10, Kevin calls the police and reports what has happened. By this time, the police already know something is wrong. A young couple walking past the bank's rear entrance, Bullion Bay, had seen the white van parked in a strange way. They felt uneasy, told a traffic warden, and that warning reached the police. When officers arrive at Northern Bank, they realize the scale of what has happened. 26.5 million pounds are missing. No alarms were set off, no doors were smashed. No gunman burst into the building. The money simply walked out using the hands of the very people trusted to protect Eton. The months that follow the investigation becomes massive and frustrating. Police carry out raids in Belfast, Dublin, and Cork. They arrest men with links to the Irish Republican Army and other criminal groups. They find bundles of cash hidden in washing powder boxes, millions buried or mixed with compost, and even someone burning sterling notes in a garden. However, for all this activity, they cannot prove who actually planned and carried out the robbery itself. Suspicion naturally falls on the inside men first. They arrest Kevin Mc. He spends a year in custody as investigators try to find anything that ties him directly to the plot. They examine his finances, his calls, his life. In the end, they find nothing. He is released. Then they turn to Chris Ward. He is accused of arranging the staff rota, the work schedule, in a way that put him and Kevin in position as key holders. That week his home is searched, his part-time job at a sports ground is raided, and he is put on trial. But once again, the case collapses. The bank confirms in court that the rota change was not Chris's idea. It was a management decision. With that, he, too, is cleared in total police conduct. Over 20 searches, make 13 arrests, and yet, no one is ever convicted for planning the robbery. The families who were held hostage are eventually found alive. Chris, his family had been held in his own home the whole time. Kevin's wife, Karen, had been taken deep into a forest and locked in an empty cabin. When the kidnappers left, they burned her car, destroying potential evidence. The money, however, is a different story. Most of it has never been recovered. The Northern Bank robbery stands in the record books as a rare thing, A huge crime, with no clear ending. A major bank lost £26.5 million. Two employees were forced to help under fear of death. Families were terrorized, yet the people who planned it have never been brought to court for. Students of world history and crime, this case sits at a strange crossroads, shows how deep knowledge of a system, from bank procedures to security blind spots, can be turned into a weapon. It shows how fear and control can be more powerful than guns or breaking locks. And it shows how even in a modern state with cameras, forensics, and huge police resources, a small group with patience and planning can still make money vanish today. The case remains open, but cold. No clear proof, no public confessions, and no neat ending. All that is left is a story, a night of knocks on doors, to terrified families, and a bank that woke up to find its vaults almost empty. So, as you listen to this heist from history, ask yourself, was this the perfect crime? Or is it simply a perfect example of how human fear, trust, and routine can be turned against us in the most calculated way imaginable?